You did not mean to give it away. That is the first thing to understand. No one sits down and consciously decides to surrender the hours of their life to things that do not matter. The dispossession happens gradually, conversationally, socially, one small concession at a time, until you look up and realize that the day, and then the week, and then the year has been administered almost entirely by other people's priorities. Seneca had a word for the people who take your time without deserving it. He called them flatterers, hangers-on, those who consume your attention while offering nothing that genuinely enriches your life in return. But his analysis goes deeper than social parasites. The people who take your time are often not malicious. They are simply present, and you have not learned to protect yourself from mere presence. You mistake availability for generosity. You mistake compliance for kindness. And so the hours disappear. Think of the morning. The very beginning of the day, which belongs to you more completely than any other part, before the world has pressed its claims against you. How often do you own that hour? How often does it begin in stillness and intention, versus beginning in response to a notification, a message, a demand from someone who had no hesitation asking? The morning is surrendered first. Then the afternoon. Then the evening is too depleted for anything other than recovery, which is not the same as living. This is the arithmetic of a life lived at the disposal of others. Seneca writes to Lucilius with the urgency of a man who knows what is at stake. Not wealth, not reputation, not comfort, but time. The one thing that, once given, cannot be recovered. He says it plainly: reclaim yourself. Two words that contain an entire philosophy of how to live. The verb itself is important. To reclaim is not simply to take, it implies that something was once yours and has since been dispersed, handed away, perhaps stolen. It implies that the work of living well is, in part, a work of recovery. What does it mean to reclaim yourself? It means beginning to account for your hours the way a careful person accounts for money. Seneca makes this comparison deliberately. If someone stole your money, you would be furious. You would pursue the matter. You would not simply shrug and absorb the loss as though it were inevitable. But time is stolen from us constantly, by frivolous obligations, by social rituals we participate in without believing in, by conversations that provide no nourishment, by meetings that accomplish nothing, and we absorb each theft with equanimity, even gratitude. As though being wanted was the same as being valued. As though being occupied was the same as being used well. The social obligations are the subtler trap. Not the outright time wasters, whom you can sometimes identify and avoid, but the legitimate seeming claims, the dinners you attend out of obligation rather than affection, the events you appear at because your absence would be noticed, the commitments made months ago in a more expansive mood and honored grimly in a more depleted one. Seneca is not recommending misanthropy. He is not telling you to disappear from the world. He is asking you to introduce a new standard. Does this claim on my time come from someone or something I have genuinely chosen? Or am I here because I did not have the clarity or the courage to say no? The courage to say no is underrated in most philosophies of living. We speak endlessly about what to say yes to, which is the pleasant part of the analysis. But what you say no to defines your life just as surely. Every yes to something inconsequential is a no to something that matters. Every hour spent managing an unnecessary obligation is an hour not spent in thought, in conversation that actually reaches something, in the kind of reading or reflection that changes the angle from which you see the world. You cannot have everything. The question is whether what you have was chosen. There is a particular exhaustion that comes from a life organized around other people's definitions of your time. It is not the clean exhaustion of work that mattered, the tiredness that comes after effort fully given to something genuinely important. It is a grayer fatigue, harder to locate, the kind that accumulates without a single obvious cause. You were never doing anything terrible. You were just doing too many things that were not yours. Things that carried the form of obligation without the substance of meaning. And the accumulated weight of all that formless obligation presses down in ways that are difficult to name. Seneca says, "Do not wait for freedom. Do not wait for the moment when circumstances finally arrange themselves such that your time is your own. That moment will not come. The world does not voluntarily surrender its claims on you. You must take back what is yours by deliberate action, by the patient practice of setting limits, not aggressively, not dramatically, but consistently and without apology. Begin with the honest inventory. What are you doing this week that you would not choose if the choice were entirely yours? Which commitments carry genuine weight and which carry only the weight of habit or expectation? Which relationships replenish you and which merely consume? This is not selfishness. It is self-knowledge, which is the precondition for any life that is actually inhabited rather than merely endured. The reclamation does not need to be total or sudden. It begins with a single hour taken back. An evening spent in the company of your own thoughts rather than in the service of someone else's agenda. A morning defended from the first intrusion. A refusal, made quietly and firmly, to surrender time you cannot afford to lose to purposes you did not choose. Each small act of reclamation builds the habit of sovereignty over your own life. Each boundary drawn around an hour is a statement about what you believe matters. What Seneca is offering is not a lifestyle philosophy. It is something older and more urgent, a recognition that the material of your life is time, and that time is not renewable, and that you are currently giving it away. The question is not whether you can afford to reclaim it. You cannot afford not to. Ita fac, me Lucilii, Vindica te tibi. Do this, my Lucilius, claim yourself for yourself. That was episode 3 of our Seneca series, on the shortness of life. Vindica te tibi. Claim yourself for yourself. 2,000 years ago, Seneca wrote those words to a friend. He is writing them to you now. In episode 4, we go deeper, into the most seductive trap of all, the life you are always about to start living. Subscribe to StoicForge so you don't miss it. Like this video if Seneca made you think. This is StoicForge. Ancient wisdom. Modern edge.